after that. Welcome to Adam Makes Beer. My name's Adam. This is the January 2024 live stream Q&A podcast. Just so you know, September and June in the chat. As you can see, I'm learning to use StreamYard, and I'm finding out that I can put those questions, those comments up on the video stream there. Listen, I'm going to be 47. You got to cut me some slack. I'm learning slowly but surely. But as you can see, September and June is proud of our love, and I am as well. There are a few things that I am as proud of as my love for September and June. But hey, everybody, welcome. We've got a bunch of stuff going on today. The little 5-minute period where I was live beforehand, it caught me off guard a little bit. I've got a few things going on. Listen, today we are dropping free merch. We are dropping a t-shirt of your choice for a Brewers Apprentice membership. And actually, I may have changed the name of that level, by the way. I may have changed it like tier 1 membership. And the reason that is that implies that at some point there's going to be another tier. Well, you got that right, because there is going to be another tier. And we're going to be getting into it. But in all the excitement here, I don't have everything pulled up here just the way I typically do. So give me just a moment to get my stuff together. We got a great lineup of questions submitted this month, as always, from our amazing listener base here on the channel, on Instagram. Dude, we're going to have some cool Instagram stuff coming up. I mean, not just Instagram stuff, but some content stuff. I'm going to be doing some stuff coming up with, this is in the announcements. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into it. Adam Makes Beer is now a podcast. Check out Spotify, Apple Podcast, and see all the long-form brewer interviews we have done. After you subscribe, please leave a review and comment as well, because it really helps support the work I am doing. Also, if you are new to the channel or podcast, go to Adam Makes Beer on YouTube, click the playlist tab, and see tons of info, brew days, techniques, tutorials, over 546 videos now. Man. As always, if you're getting value out of this content, please follow, rate, like, comment, and share with your brewing friends and craft beer enthusiast homies. And if you have the means and feel as if my content has benefited you, consider a channel membership for $2.99 a month. It gives you a priority for Q&A live streams, for getting questions in. And also, we're going to start doing a quarterly merch drawing for all members. So that's cool. Also, I appreciate when you drop those super chat tips in the comments or chat. January's Industry Pro live stream will be January 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with guest Mitch Steele, formerly of Stone, currently of New Realm Brewing. Stay tuned for more details on that. Make sure you're plugged into Instagram, Facebook, and follow, subbed, and everything on YouTube so you can get all of the announcements on that. The Ohio Craft Brewers Conference is coming up January 16th through 18th, where I will be speaking about content creation and creating direction with your career. Very much looking forward to it. If you happen to see me there, please say hi. I like saying hi to people. Listen, I'm going to be there with Josh. Okay. I mean, we're both going, but Josh is my boy, Big Rig Josh. You know what the deal is. So it's going to be me and Josh rolling through the trade show, going to talks, high-fiving, sipping a beverage or two in the evening. It's going to be the real deal. But the window of time that you can spend with Josh is relatively short. Not true. Josh is a joy. But please do just come up and say, hey, you're going to see me. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be wearing Adam Makes Beer merch. Did we mention Adam Makes Beer merch? Boom. New design here for summer. You want it to feel like it's summer. Is winter dragging on for you? Has the lack of sunlight got you down? Would you prefer to feel warm Caribbean breezes whistling through your beard and other frontal areas of your face? Well, have I got a solution for you? Look at that. Dude, you can see the seagulls. You can see them flying by. They can see you. They can see the fact that you're snacking on the beach, and they want to swoop down, man. Land right next to you, that warming sand that you're laying on top of with that nice long beach blanket. This is what this merch does for you, okay? If you're in Australia, I mean, it's just any other day right now because it's warm over there, or so I hear. But yeah, so get in there and get it. So I'm going to be wearing the stuff. I'm going to be wearing like a Sonder hat, an Adam Makes Beer shirt. I do have hoodies in there now. Listen, and there is literally a flock of seagulls, Andrew. I will tell you that. And Mad Viking, welcome to the stream, brother. It's been I've seen you around for a while, so it's good to see you in the stream. Yeah, I mean, it's the way to better mental health throughout the winter season, if that's the hemisphere that you are living in right now. So I don't have any studies to back it up, but this is just it's anecdotal, baby. Also, I even have another design up. I have a hoodie up. I have a zip up hoodie up right now with a new cool design thing. Listen, all this stuff I'm doing myself. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to keep dropping designs and throwing them on things. I did find that this t-shirt that I have right here is the kind that I like quite a bit. It's like a little bit there. It's like a little bit softer, and it has like a little bit more like stretch to it. But anyways, I found like the t-shirts that I like. I've got my hoodie coming soon. The design on the hoodie is cool. I don't know if I can show you. Let me see if I can show you on my phone. I do. If I were a competent individual, I would like show you utilizing StreamYard, but we all know that there's levels to the competence. My man BG, my man Bill Gerds in the house there repping. If you remember, Bill's one of my top most popular interviews when we talked Australian Pale Ale and stuff like that. Boom, baby. Did you see that? What? Are you kidding me? Adam Makes Beer with all 4 elements of beer underneath it. I mean, above it. Come on. So that stuff's coming. You're going to see. I'm going to be wearing that stuff. I'm going to be wearing a Sonder hat because they're like my day job, and you got to balance, right? So, but you have to kind of represent them both. I'm going to run around the conference. Come see me. Come say hi. A little good timing. A little high-fiving. I'm interested to hear about what you guys have going on in the brew house. So hit me up. Also, while I'm there, I am going to be starting to do some cool stuff with my friends at Cold Break. If you do not know, in my mind, Cold Break produce the best jockey boxes on the market. And like for proof of that, like I think it's back in a reel or something, or maybe I did a little jockey box, like maybe it was a reel on Instagram, maybe I did something on YouTube. I don't think I did on YouTube, but I did do some stuff, a little bit of spot content on jockey boxes. Cold Break is the real deal. Okay. They've been my favorite for a long time. I remember the first time I was working at Gray Line and Nate there bought a Cold Break jockey box, and I was just used to those blue or red plastic boys that are always blowing out the connection port through the shank for the faucet. You're always tearing through it. It's nasty. You get beer inside of it. These Cold Break jockey boxes are the real deal. So I'm going to be doing some content with them, which is cool. I'm going to do some informative stuff on how to clean, how to use. I'm going to be putting that on the channel. And then also something cool, and that's good for me, is they've got a big following on Instagram. Man, they've got 100,000 followers on Instagram, and we're gonna do some crossover work together on Instagram, promoting that stuff. So that might give me a nice bump as far as the channel goes. But that's more to come, But speaking of wonderful industry partners, Blickman Engineering has been the pioneer of nano brewing, and they have helped hundreds of successful breweries achieve their dreams since they started with one barrel systems in 2006. Now offering a full suite of brew houses up to 15 barrel skidded and insulated, matching cellaring equipment, keg washers, grain mills, and more sized specifically for the nano brewer. Blickman Pro brewing systems are competitively priced without sacrificing quality. And the simple design and factory direct support from our brewing experts gets you up and running faster than anything else on the market. When you're ready to go pro or just kicking the tires, be sure to reach out to them for expert advice and a partner to help you through it all. Turn your dreams into a reality by reaching out to Phil, Tom, or Josh at ProSeries@BlickmanEngineering.com. Again, that's ProSeries@BlickmanEngineering.com. Blickman Engineering Pro Brewing is proud to be the equipment sponsor for this channel and is committed to helping every brewer, no matter where they are in their journey. Give them a shout. Shoot them an email. Tell them thanks for supporting your boy, Adam Mills, over at Adam Makes Beer. So, yeah. CT Homebrewing, any plans on tall sizes? I'd be happy to pay the upcharge. Dude, check it out, because they do have a range of sizes in these. And they will also actually, I can double check in the store, and if they don't, they actually have a size guide that will actually show how long the different portions of the shirt is. So check it out. Check it out. And like I said, the merch thing, I'm gonna be we're gonna be dropping some more things here or there. We're figuring out, it's wild, the things that you can put a logo on. I have sold 2 Brew Daddy mugs, so there you go, you animals. You asked for it, you got it. But anyways, let's check out a couple of things here, everybody. Let's try. We're gonna jump right in on this and try it like that. Do you see that question just pop up there all smooth like? This is from Andrew. Hey Adam, have you ever ran into pre-boil volume issues because your grain was stored too hot? I'm trying to chase down a seemingly random issue with being short on volume by almost 20%, which sounds improbable. Okay, so let's try to jump into this a little bit. Pre-boil volume issues because your grain was stored too hot. So it sounds like to me what you're asking is it possible that how your grain is stored is so hot and dry that it has lowered the amount of moisture in the kernel, leading to more absorption during the mashing process? That's what it sounds like you're asking me, Andrew, and that's how I'm gonna proceed answering the question, and you can jump in and clarify for me on the fly here. I mean, I guess that's possible, right? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what moisture content is going to be on the. Okay, bingo, good. We're on the same page. Or BIGO, either way. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's possible. But off the top of my head, I mean, I'm thinking moisture probably is somewhere maybe around 4 or 5% on grain, maybe on malt. Maybe if somebody wants to look that up for me real quick, and I'll keep riffing, and you can drop it in the and you can drop it in the chat. But moisture is not like that's kind of like part of the whole idea, right? Both for storage ability, right, or shelf stability of the malt and things like that. I mean, I guess if it's super hot and super dry where you are, maybe it's possible to drop that to that point, but I would almost start looking in a couple of different areas. And some of the things I'm gonna say, might sound kind of simple, but and I don't mean them to sound insulting, but we're tracking down some issues with the brew house. Me and some of the other guys over at Sonder, and we're having a conversation. It's like you talk out every possible solution, right? Even if you know it probably isn't it, but you just try to break it all the way down. So, I mean, my guess is you're probably not getting that much loss. How much loss are you getting volume wise? I mean, my gut would be would actually be going to the measurement side. Okay. Yeah, moisture is okay. So moisture is usually around 4.5%. Did you just pick a number that it was directly in the middle of what I did? Because I think I said 4 to 5%. So if that number is right, I mean, goodness gracious, I'm gonna feel good about myself tonight. So, but yeah, I mean, maybe if you're in some crazy dry area, but my feeling is there's something going wrong on the measurement side. Okay, whether it is the volume of grain going in, the volume of water going in, you looked it up. Well, that's good. I mean, that's what the internet's for, but that's my feeling there. Also, potentially, yeah, I mean, because you're talking about a loss of volume, liquid volume. Yeah, I mean, my gut wants to take it from there. So, and especially since it sounds like you're having an issue getting your kettle to the volume you want it to be. That's what I'm assuming you're saying here, Andrew. If that's the case, that seems awfully odd to me. I do understand why you're, extra absorption could be a possibility, but that one's got me a little sideways. Other than to say that potentially it's more on the measurement side, right? That's the only thing I can make of it. Now, I'm assuming you're running everything through a recipe calculator, and you have and we're just going to call it like the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb, tenth of a gallon per pound of grist. That's, you have that loss, which is accounted for. Andrew continues. I'm going to start weighing my water additions. Been brewing for 20 years, and this has happened 3 times this year. Even brewing sober. Yes, mistakes can be made, even when brewing sober. But yeah, I mean, maybe doubling back down on that side, man. So yeah, that would be my only guess, because with the moisture content so low already, I mean, man, first of all, it would almost be like you would have to willfully be trying to get that stuff drier. Is it incredibly like hot and dry where you are? Because and listen, I don't think it matters. I don't think that's what it is. I mean, maybe it would be a really small percentage of it if you're living in the hottest, driest area. But yeah. And it all comes back to note taking. You know what I mean? And get yourself a form for a brew log that you like, and take good notes, and try to track that stuff down. So, I appreciate the question, man. Let's see here. So, Mad Viking, I think you might actually even have another question in here tonight, man. Hey, Adam, at what point in the brew day should you take pH readings, and what should it be at each stage? It is a little bit of it depends question. For me, I would say like the big ones. For me personally, I like a mash pH. And we're gonna say ahead of time that we already have an understanding of our mash water, of our strike water and what pH and water profile that is. So we're gonna say that's an understood already. But I would say your initial mash, you're gonna want a pH on your initial mash. I personally like to check the pH of my sparge, especially as I get toward the end. I find, as I dial that in, when I was at Cartridge, the crazy alkalinity I was dealing with there, we had to work a lot at it with acid additions and whatnot. But yeah, so I like kind of a first runnings, a last runnings pH sample. I like a pre-boil and I like a post-boil. The pre-boil probably isn't like well, I mean, it is. Your pre-boil or post-boil, but then again, remember I'm dealing with large volumes too. But really you don't need a large volume for pH samples. Do make sure to be cooling those pH samples to the calibration range of your pH meter. But then, definitely the final pH of the beer, of a degas sample of your beer. Those are the ones I do. And you could make an argument either way. I could see you, I could see somebody arguing against whatever, but that makes me feel comfortable. I like that. And I feel like those are markers that can let me know if there's some things going on, right? Like right now, we track pH daily through all of our fermentations. I can see 7 days a week, 365. I can see some brewers saying that that's not necessary. I'm not going to argue with you. But at the same time, though, it's very cool to be able to see. You can almost track it's almost as accurate a measurement as gravity is in some ways when you're tracking it like that and you get used to what your yeast strain is doing. It goes down to wherever it goes down to, then it slowly starts ticking back up again, right? So yeah, that's what I do. And that's kind of what I would suggest. And just a couple of notes on pH meter, depending on what you're doing on what scale, I would say, get the best pH meter that you can. Keep it stored in an appropriate solution. You have to keep that probe wet, man, because otherwise that probe's gonna blow out on you. Maintain it well, calibrate it often. And yeah, so appreciate the question, Mad Viking. Let's go with a question from September and June. Any resolutions in regarding to the brewery and beer this year for yourself apart from the AMB dynasty? Yeah, I am moving into a role where I am probably half of my time is going to be on the floor doing brewing things, whether that be brewing, cellaring, or whatnot. I still do have to get cross-trained to the canning line. I'm not sure how high of a priority that is for my boss right now, for me to get cross-trained on canning. But we do want to get guys cross-trained across multiple, really we want everybody cross-trained across everything, right? Because that gives us ultimate flexibility and scheduling and things like that. I think as far as Sonder goes, I want to continue to grow in my level of comfort with the new equipment and new processes that we use there. want to get better as this is also pertaining to job, because the other portion of my job is management leadership. I want to continue to get better as a leader. It's still one of the hardest things in leadership for me is seeing something that I have an issue with and just bringing it up immediately and just like dealing with it in a reasonable way. I'm not saying that like I fly off the handle, because I typically don't, at least not in the workplace. But yeah, sometimes you see something, you're like, I wish that was being done differently. And you just sit on it, right? Because it's awkward. I want to get better at being more assertive with that. Because that's the way you keep small problems from becoming big problems, right? Because then all of a sudden you find yourself, it's a little thing that you want something done a different way, and you don't say anything as the leader in the situation. You keep saying it, and you get more and more irritated. So that's something that I want to grow in a way that I want to grow at work. Also, as far as beer goes, continuing to understand beer quality better and better, and then get some side beers on here and there. I'm kicking around. Chase has told me just let me know when I want to do a beer, get a beer in production. And I don't know, right now I'm just kind of focused on other stuff, and then I'm kind of kicking around what I want to be doing there, right? So anyways, that's kind of the deal there. But yeah, I don't know. It's a little less focus on the creative side per se. I'm definitely going to be focused on trying to become more profitable in the brewery. So whether that be on the procurement side or sourcing, looking at different products that might help increase productivity, efficiency, things like that. So no really big awesome brewing things, but this position that I've taken at Sonder, I think this is kind of the area that I need to be focused in right now. And then I can see myself shifting gears and being able to think a little bit more on the beer side of things. But right now I'm very much in a situation where my primary role is going to be focused on getting some management leadership type stuff done. So yeah, hopefully that's not an unsexy answer for my beer people out there, but that's kind of where I'm rolling with it. So appreciate the question in September. Spooning and Vert is in there, keeping it real, and it is key to keep the pH probe wet, and it will blow out on you if you don't. So I don't know if that was if that was a direct quote. I mean, I'll own it. It is written. It is written in quotes. Mad Viking, you're welcome. CT Homebrewing wants to know what are some non-traditional ingredients that I've tried to brew or experiment with. Not a lot, man. I've actually been thinking a little bit more. Me with the gluten thing going on. I'm gonna have a question a little bit later where somebody asked some questions about Clarex, and I'm gonna be looking for. I need to start digging into some beer on the gluten-free side. But yeah, but I'm not super familiar with it because there's those grains, I think spelt is. I could be wrong. But there's sorghum and some different things like that. I personally think the big step forward with gluten-free beer is going to be something that happens on the enzymatic side. We're using traditional ingredients, and it's something on the enzymatic side that's making the difference there. But that's just me. Yeah, and buy the meter with replaceable probes. Yes. Tim Summers, welcome, man. Speaking of Tim Summers, next question is from Tim Summers on YouTube. Adam, all caps. Let's play hypothetical here. You're starting your own brewery, aren't planning on doing distro right off the bat, just going to do tap room with some package sales added in. What's your ideal brewing capacity with, say, 10 beers on tap, at least to start? All right, so let's dig into this a little bit. A lot of times people will say that you want to buy the biggest system that you can, and things like that. I'm not necessarily completely on board with that. I do see the idea where sometimes people are like, oh yeah, well, you want a really big system so you can grow and it'll make it easier to scale. I don't know. I think most times, most places I've been in have systems that are maybe too big for what they have going on. And what it does is it limits reps. Now there's a flip side to that. There's a labor element to that. But anyhow, let's kind of look at it from this standpoint. So let's start off by talking about what's the volume of beer that you need to be able to make to be profitable, right? Because that's the golden ticket here, right? And when you do that, don't sit there and plot out, oh, well, I'm selling $6, $7, $8, $9 pints or whatever, and doing your math all through pint math. Because you're going to be selling beer as in can, you're going to be selling beer to go. The margin on those things are all different. Also, you're probably not going to get 124 pints out of your half barrel. There's going to be loss, different things like that. So, give yourself some cushion, but, your business plan should have a very specific amount of beer that's going to make you profitable. And that's what you need to build backward from. I know you see a lot of places out there where, for a long time before like the nano thing started, I think you saw a lot of people that were doing, kind of 7 barrels was kind of like the smallest that you could find. And, there was some, like some Frankenbrew rig, stuff like that and whatever. But yeah, I don't think you need to go huge. Yeah, there's pluses and minuses to buying new and buying used as well. I've worked on new brew houses and had good experiences. I've worked on new brew houses and had bad experiences. Used does mean at some point more, something's going to go wrong at some point. You can depend on having to swap pumps out and seals and a whole bunch of different things, right? So it can be tricky. But you do definitely want to start off with what is that volume of beer you need to be selling, right? And then kind of scale from there. If you're the person brewing, it's going to be tough, because you're going to be running a business and dealing with business problems as well as, making beer and brewery problems. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be good to have somebody help you on one side or the other. In my mind, if you're looking at, I need to make 500 barrels a year to be profitable. We have a really lean model, 500 barrels a year, 600 barrels a year, 700 barrels a year, something like that. I think you're looking at, like a 5 to 7 barrel system, right? Something that can keep you brewing 100 times a year, and you're turning things over. Now, in defense of something like a 5 barrel system, you could, have some 5 barrel tanks, some 5 barrel fermenters, and some 10 barrel fermenters, right? Because it kind of brings me to my next point. The bulk of the beer that you're going to be selling is probably like 3 to 4 SKUs, right? That's a little bit of like, like grocery talk or whatever. But, it's going to be 3 to 4 beers or 3 to 4 types of beers that are going to be carrying your brand. Depending on where you are, I have a feeling it might be, the lightest beer you sell, an IPA, a fruit beer, and something else, right? Probably something else adjuncted, depending on where you're at. But really, I mean, the bulk of the beer you're going to make is going to be, and even if you have shifting brands, it's still going to be light beer, IPA, fruity beer, more than likely, right? So yeah, so don't be afraid to look at the utility of a double-sized tank, right? So if you have that rice lager, or you have that light blonde ale that you put on, that cream ale, whatever, and you want to double batch that, and do 10 barrels, do 2 turns on your 5-barrel brew house for 10 barrels, that's fine. Because the reality is I feel like I've seen more people overbuy equipment and lose their brewery than underbuy equipment and not be able to expand, right? So I don't know, and maybe you're a brewery owner in the chat right now, and you're like, this guy's a complete idiot, but yeah. So Tim is following up in the chat. I'm hoping that I'll have a head brewer and a front of house manager as well. And let me run the business. Let the experts do what they do best. Tim, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea, and hopefully that doesn't sound sarcastic when I say that. But actually, get some people with some expertise, man. And yeah, communicate well with them. And yeah, keep me in the loop, man. I'm interested in stuff like that. So I always like to help. Give a shout out to those How to Make Beer listeners that are doing their thing out there. So Tim, appreciate the question, and that's kind of where I would take it from there, right? That's just some of my thoughts on what you need to be doing sizing wise. And I know we hit a few different things, but I think there might be some things in there that can give you some guidance. Tim, where are you opening this place at, by the way? Throw it in the see, dude. September. Yeah, I think I'm hopefully that wasn't a question that hopefully it wasn't any power suggestion, but your palate is sharp enough that yeah, the corn lends a slightly sweeter tone to those beers. I think. Well, what did you prefer, the rice version of that beer or the corn version of it? Obviously, no wrong answer. We're talking personal preference. And also, as far as Tim Summers, he's a Wisconsin fella, Appleton. Well, keep us in the loop as you go, brother. Next question comes from Andy on YouTube. Don't you need a pressure gauge on the couplers so you know what pressure is in the keg and to manage flow rate to the keg? Now, this was a question that came off of my keg filling, the keg filling video tutorial that I did. That was an older one. It was from Cartridge, and basically that was me just I'm filling off keg couplers. I was using tees to build off the side port of my tank, and that was giving me multiple kegging lines off of it. And you can also have a manifold for that. You can buy those as well. And sometimes those manifolds come with an extra port that is for a pressure gauge. And then how you're managing flow rate in that situation is you can either have like the little hissy GW Kent like screw in like float check valves that stick off the end of them. They're fine. I feel like if you're in a pub situation, you can just kind of not sweat those things. And I know some people will say, there's a level that they're supposed to be filled to. They can freeze and explode. And I mean, I know all that stuff, and I know that the head pressure stuff. So just a side note, William in the chat, love you, man. There's that handsome devil. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you too, Bill. Miss you, man. Wishing you and the family the best. And so that's what I was doing. So I kind of built my own manifold out of teas going off the side, and then the keg coupler, I would put the little small closed valve, the little small valve on both the input and output, right? And so really it's the gas portion that you're cracking open to start relieving pressure to allow beer to come into the keg as you off gas. So that's how you're really driving it, right? Is the off gas speed. You will have some loss when kegging of CO2, but if you're being reasonable, if you're keeping it to an 8 to 10 minute fill on a half barrel, maybe even a hair faster, I'm not sure. Head pressure, I probably should have said. Spoonding is pointing that out. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know anybody that uses the pressure gauge. I'm not saying the pressure gauge is wrong. But I mean, most people that I know just use that pressure gauge port as another port to be kegging off of. I feel as if as long as you're not, you have a keg that is already pressurized, right? So it's not like you're just taking a keg with no head pressure and then just dumping, carved beer into it and stuff like that. If you have a reasonable amount of pressure similar to what you have in your bright tank or your packaging tank, I think you're going to be all right. Maybe that's a little bit of a sloppy guy answer from me, but I don't think it needs to be sweated all that much. So, yeah. Thanks for the question, though, man. B. McGee on YouTube. Is it bad that I really want to see that brew log layout? We've been tinkering with ours forever. First of all, I'll tell you this. He's referring to a brew log from some brew day that I did. If you don't know, I have 15, 20 full-length brew days on a 15-barrel system over at Cartridge Brewing, uploaded under the playlists on the YouTube page. So check that stuff out. And he probably saw my brew log at some point in there. I will say this, that there's legitimate typos in there. And so I'm telling you where to find this right now. And I'm positive chloride is spelled wrong on there. All right. So don't come at me with you should have used, you should have used spell check, Adam. You should have been less disappointing. I'm like, who are you, my kids? So, the brew log is going to be there. It is in, if you go to, it's the first brew day that I did on YouTube. It is the maybe the most difficult beer we brew. It's on brewing Mexican lager, light American lager. It's one of my earliest brew day videos. It's me reaching up at the camera, and Maggie is sweet and smiling behind me, and those are some glory days right there. Back with young Brewdeck, Maggie Jenkins, and big Josh Halper. I mean, man, whew, glory days. But yeah, in the description of that video, there's a link to the brew log that I use. You can love it, you can hate it. It kind of measures the main things that I'm looking for. There's some things on there that I want to measure for, but that I don't. But yeah, it's just what works for my brain. And so you can check that out on there. But this is also kind of a public service announcement for do something to be tracking your brew days, right? It's a very, very important part of it. And spinning into some of the other questions that we talked about tonight, tracking your pH from multiple points throughout the brew day, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, B. McGee, get in there and download that brew log. I think it's just the PDF version of it. Enjoy the typo on chloride, and run with it. make changes to. Well, I guess you can't really make changes to it because it's a PDF. But I mean, I'm right. Hey, we've got some folks were concerned that I would have less people watching because of football today. But you know what? This is a relatively robust off the top viewership for us right now. So yeah. 100 pounds of wheat malt. What are you talking about, Spoonding? Next question comes from Cy Shoemaker on YouTube. Adam, you mentioned Clarex. Are you sensitive to gluten? Does it work well in that regard? Oh yeah, wheat malt. I get it. Spooning as always. Spooning und words. Always on point. So yeah, does Clarex work well? So disclaimer on all this stuff. This is just my experience with it. And Brewers Clarex seems to work well for me. Now, I have not drank more than 2 beers in a sitting, two Clarex beers. So I have not drank any beer at all that has not been brewed with Brewers Clarex since probably February of 2023. And this is now January 1st. So it's been some time. I don't believe I've had more than 2 beers in a drinking session since then. And I probably have not had more than 2 beers a month on average in that time. So with doing it like that, it works well for me, right? Like I don't gain tons of weight immediately. I don't suffer from a ton of anxiety and depression afterwards as I'm dealing with the the inflammation and whatnot, because that's how it affects me. So that's good. But I'm consuming very, very little beer. So, just, all that said, your mileage may vary, it's never anything you can really advertise. But yeah, it seems to work well. It seems to work well for me. Now, I would be interested in your gluten-free beer recommendations. Now, I know maybe nobody has any good ones to recommend. Not saying anything about the beer, but I do know that there's been a reputation of bad gluten-free beer, and I think a lot of that stuff was things that some of the big beer guys were doing and putting stuff out into the market. But I know more and more places are popping up. I should probably lean into this a little bit more because I'm concerned about my capacities sensory wise, not being able to taste beer. Sonder is great about it. I run smell sensory on everything, but I don't taste and I don't do the swish and spit wine stuff either. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not worth it to me. Like the way I feel is so remarkably bad that yeah. So but yeah, please drop suggestions in the comments if you have gluten-free beers in your area that you like. Let me know, because I should start dipping in on some of that stuff. And honestly, I should be more aware of what's happening in that space. So yeah, I would love to see. I would love to see. I would love to see some recommendations from you all on that. And the other note is on Clarex. Remember, Clarex is also sold as an additive that can extend filter life. That's something that's, I mean, I'm sure they have to have some sort of proof to be able to back that up. But yeah. September in June, could you get a body transplant so you can drink beer again? September, I don't know if I would want to give up all of this. Okay. That's sarcasm. But yeah, let's Spooning is in the chat doing his thing. So that's oh man, they're popping off in there. Hey, Human on Earth, good to see you. Good to see you. Beer and distilled whiskey format, good alternative. It's true, but man, spirits can be tricky, and like I also like refreshing beverages, and so yeah, you can get into cocktails and stuff like that for sure. But like I mean, you see I'm on the this is full strength, baby. This is OG. This is LaCroix today. Yeah. So but I mean, I drink like light, refreshing stuff, even in my everyday. So I mean, the spirits thing. I mean, and this one is a shout out to William in the chat. I'm no stranger, in the past to some fine spirits for those Canadian nights. What was that beverage that we always used to take on a camping trip way back in the day? It was Yukon Jack. So I mean, but no, in all seriousness though, I do enjoy bourbon. I do enjoy cocktails. But I don't know. It's just yeah, and I am good with gin. I prefer September is asking, am I good with gin? I do like gin. I do prefer Hendrix, though. I don't know if is there even such a thing as a real gin head out there? But like, I don't know if like gin nerds would be like offended by, the fact that I like Hendrix, because I know it's not it's not a big juniper forward beverage, and that's kind of what I prefer. But to me, I mean, I can just go, I could borderline drink Hendrix straight. Like it's that enjoyable to me. Now it's nicer, over some rocks with a little bit of bubbly water with it. You know what I mean? A little tonic. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Hendrix. But yeah, I'm not big on juniper. Yeah, cocktails are tasty, man. Next question comes from Bondi Beach Beer on YouTube. Bro, listen, we're going to need to do this drawing thing. You guys have to remind me at 6:30. So an hour and a half in, we're going to need to do the drawing. Okay? So, yeah, for the t-shirt. So remind me. Bondi Beach Beer. Adsy, you informative firecracker. I think he continues to ask questions just because I pointed out the fact that he always has a new way to address me, and he failed. He never disappoints. Yeah, informative firecracker. My name has been Adam since the day I was born. Okay, if you were wondering, my name has been Adam since the day I was born. Never in my life have I been called Adsy. Now I've been called Addie. All right, so like, my wife will sometimes, little cute names, right? But I've been called a lot of things, but never Adsy. So I mean, this guy comes out, he's firing. He's firing. You informative firecracker. As always, thanks for the great info. How do you perform your titrations? Now, if you have not seen the CIP tutorials that I have thrown up on YouTube recently of our CIP skid at Sonder and our COP pot at Sonder, you want to get in and see that stuff, man. Now, and I'll be honest, I know that what I'm showing you right there is very much like a Cadillac system. It's very, very fancy. It's very, very cool. It's very, very efficient. And I realize that not everybody can have that, but it's good to see that equipment and have an understanding of it, right? because it makes us sharper as professionals, or folks on the home side, the amateur side. And I also heard something that I liked recently. Sometimes there's a negative connotation with the word amateur. When you actually break it down, when you're an amateur, you're doing it for the love of something, right? Because you love it. And I like that. I think we should all have like that, some of the amateur spirit to what we're doing, even if we're doing something professionally, right? So I did post those two cool. They're cool because the equipment's cool. I'm not like, back padding here. I posted those two cool videos because the information's cool, the equipment's cool, and I mentioned in the CIP one that we do titrations. And so, what is that, first of all? So these titrations are letting me know that I have the appropriate amount of caustic in that liquid, right? This is maybe the simplest way to say it, but I have the appropriate ratio of cleaning solution in the water that I'm using, right? And so whether it be the caustic, the acid, the peracetic acid, it's letting me know the chemical concentration inside there. So how we do that is we have titration kits for each one. So on each one, we have a little box on top. We take that down. Like for caustic, I have to fill it to, I believe, 5 milliliters. So I'm circulating my caustic. I can either get the caustic off of the tank itself, have where it's dripping out of the tank, or a sample valve somewhere along the way. And then there's usually two things that you have to use. There's the green cap, where it's 2 drops of green cap. And then it's a second one with a white cap that I go in, and the green cap will turn the caustic liquid pink. And then I do a drop of the titration liquid, swirl it, it stays pink. Drop again, stays pink. As soon as it goes clear, that's the number of drops that I know that will help me know how much chemical is in solution. So for me personally, the kit that I'm using, every drop that I use is 1/4%. All right. So if I'm using caustic and I'm looking, to be between 1 and 1.5%, I want to see 4 to 6 drops before that pink liquid turns clear. Okay. Different ones may have different colors, different things like that. I don't know what each individual, the 2 agents that I add to it. I don't know what the names of those are off the top of my head, but all that stuff can be provided by your equipment manufacturer, right? I'm sorry, your chemical manufacturer, and they'll probably be excited that you want to use it, because we really should be. We really should be. I think sometimes we might be surprised. Sometimes we're busting open a fermenter or a bright tank, and we think we have a whole lot of CO2 out of that thing. And next thing you know, you're neutralizing your caustic or something like that. So anyways, it's a good thing to do to make sure you're not wasting, that you're not just dumping extra chemical down the drain, money savings, and then just effectiveness of what you're doing, right? So appreciate the question, Bondi. Let's take a look. You guys, Bill, you guys, see, maybe I just have high school blocked out. And it wasn't blacked out because we were very straight-laced kids. With Bill and I mean, we would, our wild thing was, sometimes we were country kids, probably still are country kids, right? Our wild thing was we would go out to a buddy's farm, and he had like a sand pit area and like a dune, and we would drink Mountain Dew, burn a huge round bale that was placed on top of some old stumps that was torn up from the property. We would burn that thing and run and jump off that sand hill, drink Mountain Dew by the gallon, and like play like wholesome games like hiding in the corn and like, hide and go seek, stuff like that. So, but yeah, if I will tell you, if somebody called me Adsy back then, the years have washed those memories away. But But if anything, it probably just forms, I'm sure that's true. Potentially there's just some sort of, previously unrealized mental connection with my man Bondi beer, you know? Yeah, Spooning, at what point do you think you're going to be able to address each thing to a prior video, each question to a prior video? I'm not sure. I mean, we'll see. It's one of those things from a content creation standpoint. The model that I'm following right now is, I'm doing a video a day, and in part that's because I want to have the reputation as somebody that produces a lot of content, to let people know that I'm serious about what I'm doing in part, and showing that there is, showing that there is value to what I'm doing. And so sometimes, like, some questions I've had, like, I've posted answers for multiple times, but it's one of those things where I doubt somebody is going to be going back and seeing the fact that I answered a similar question, like, 10 months before. If they do, and they're that big of a channel nerd, then yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, sometimes, what I really should be doing, and something that I'm not doing, is like with the kegging video that I referenced before, the brew log video, stuff like that. I need to be on my game enough to be linking those videos in the short versions of these that I cut up. I need to get better at that, but there's only so much. There's only so much time. And Spooning, I know full well there wasn't anything. Yeah, there was no, like, yeah, you're good, man. I get it. I get it. Next question comes from Riv Rivera on YouTube. One of my favorite names. This was in response to a video on the COP pot at Sonder. So I just released a video on how we clean smalls at Sonder, right? And in the past, we've actually talked about cleaning smalls a few different times on the channel, where you have all your Lego pieces for your brew day, right, that are not permanently attached to a tank. You've used them, they're dirty. How do you get them clean for the next day, right? We've talked about multiple ways of doing that and things. So, but at Sonder, they have this awesome COP pot. So clean out of place. So you can put all the smalls in there. It has its own pump, and it pumps water like in a circular fashion around. So we actually get flow with it as well, which is crazy. It's very cool. So this question was attached to that video. So I just explained how, we have this cool thing. It has a pump. It's all stainless. It's circulating. It's all, again, a very Cadillac type thing to have. And then Riv Rivera in the comments said, I use buckets. And I'll tell you, that made me laugh very hard. One, because I've used buckets as well. The super majority of my time brewing, I've used buckets. And I think it was just a funny response, right? But I do think it speaks to a larger point, right? Where right now I'm in a situation where we don't necessarily have to find a lot of workarounds, right? There are occasions, right? We were troubleshooting a valve issue on the brew house last week, and we had to, do something not janky, but you had to find your workaround for it. And so, the brewery content that I'm doing right now with Sonder is showing some high level stuff. But, at the same time, it can feel like, well, I'm using equipment like this, or equipment like that isn't necessary. You can have a few different reactions to it. But, when you don't have access to that stuff, that's when it's stretching that brain, man, and it's putting you in a situation where you need to troubleshoot, right? You need to find efficiencies. You need to, I think it can make you a more industrious brewer, right? So it puts you in a situation where you have to problem solve. Yeah, in September and June said, I use buckets as well. That rig you have is insane. And it is. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. Spooning and Votes, I am not going to read that live, but you're funny. What else? What else? So yeah, that was really it, Rivera. Yeah, man, I get it. Using buckets, it's great, but also there's positive to having fancier equipment, and there's positives to having less fancy equipment. I think it can make us a little bit sharper, right? So anyhow, next question. El Camino, I think I have you for a question a little bit later too, but let's take a look at this. El Camino Mas Largo Brewing, and sorry for my pronunciation there. Cold Crash. I've used Kvike at high temps to make pilsners before, and they turn out okay, but it's not quite the flavor profile I'm looking for. If I ferment a pilsner using lager yeast under pressure, do I need to keep it 64 to 68, or can I ferment it at ambient at 70 to 72? All right, so I'm gonna. I can actually throw this question up in a couple parts here. So this is interesting, and I'm gonna give a range of answers on this. First, let's address the whole Kvike lager-like thing. I know people will say with yeast like Lutra and maybe some others that you can make a beer that is very lager-like. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm sure you can make a clean beer. I remember the first time though I'd used a lot of American ale yeast in my home brewing career, my time home brewing, and then the first time I brewed a lager at home, I smelled it, and I'm like, damn, that's clean. Like there's nothing aromatically other than malt and hops that are in this beer, right? And there was just nothing to it. And I was used to smelling American ale yeast ferment and the finished product, and I'm like, oh, that's clean, But there's just something different. Now, if you want to say lager-like, that's fine. I don't have a problem with Kvike yeast. I've made probably 150 batches of yeast with of beer with Kvike yeast, and I think it's an interesting little critter. But yeah, you're not getting the flavor profile that you want out of those fermentations, and so you're looking at utilizing a lager strain. Now, this is where I'll say some things that maybe some people might have an issue with. I would recommend that you get yourself some 3470, whatever, that's a pretty traditional German lager yeast, pretty well heavily used, maybe the one of the bigger most used lager strains out there. I know guys that have very good palates that are fermenting that strain far higher than what you might think. Okay. I do know some guys that set it and forget it at 60 with that strain, and then after lagering and getting the yeast out of it and getting it brilliantly clear, the beers are very, very clean, and these are people whose palates I trust. So yeah, I think there's a wider range in that, and then we also bring up the idea of a pressure ferment, and just for reference sake, pressure ferments, fermenting under pressure can subdue ester formation. I'll throw out the other portion of the question here real quick too. It can suppress ester formation, and so that means that potentially, well, you can make up for it on the other side. You can increase fermentation temperature, especially at the beginning of fermentation when the supermajority of those esters are formed, right? I don't, I don't know. There are some issues with pressure fermentation. If you're looking at like harvesting yeast over and over and over, you might have some issues with pressure fermentation. Keeping more CO2 in solution of that fermenting liquid, that CO2 is toxic to yeast, and you may end up finding that you have lower viability, maybe even lower growth, things like that. So just something to consider as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, you could, you could. What I would do is I would be interested in seeing if you were going to do that at like 64 or 68. I'm assuming you can't ferment lower than that, and that's why we're having this conversation. So let's just try to troubleshoot the problem. I would try to ferment as cold as you can with probably like see what 5 psi does for you. Get some pressure on it, but maybe not all the way up to like 15 psi or 1 bar or whatever people are, what people are doing that at. Maybe see what you get out of that, right? Also, I would recommend check it out with some lager yeast and check it out with some 05. I remember back in the day that Sierra Nevada was doing some lager type fermentations with 05. Right. So yeah, or at least experiments with it. So that would be my recommendation on that, man. Yes, that rig is insane. Next question comes from Brian Decker on YouTube. So does that grist hydrator and chute from the grain bin ever get clogged? This is in reference to the long list of brew day series that we have over on the playlist section over at Adam Makes Beer. And typically when we're mashing in, you're going to be able to see me using the grist hydrator. And what the grist hydrator is for us, it's, this, almost squarish. It's round. But this blocky thing that goes right on top of the mash tun, and grain is dropped through the top of it, and then there's usually like a symbol inside of it, like a little circle, but popped up in the center. And so that grain will hit that little symbol head and then drop down. And then a lot of times underneath that symbol head, I'm going to create the shape. Boom. Let me see if boom. Well, you'll pump water up and underneath it, so water will sheet out around. And so as that grain drops over that little symbol head, it will wet that grain on its way. It's a hydrator, right? It'll wet that grain on the way into the mash tun. Yes. So if I don't take that off every time, I don't usually, I don't know how often I show taking it down, but that gets cleaned every time we brew. Okay. Because you will get wet grain that's stuck up on top of it. It'll build up, it'll gum up. All that stuff needs to be wiped out / cleaned, everything like that. Yeah. And you do want to prevent as much as you can getting steam up in your your grist line that's dropping your grist down. If you're in a situation where you have a grist hopper or a vessel that is holding your malted grains that will be dropping through your hydrator into your mash tun, you want to keep steam out of there as much as you can to prevent that stuff from gumming up, getting nasty, stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely correct on all that stuff. I was wondering if the steam from the hot water could make its way up the chute. Yeah, so that's why as soon as that grain is done dropping, I'm slamming that chute shut. I'm taking it off. I'm detaching it from the hydrator, wiping that clean, and then when I'm done with the whole process, that hydrator comes down and that gets hand cleaned, and then reinstalled after the brew day for the next brew day. So yeah, appreciate the question, Brian. Yeah, Andrew in the chat, one upgrade for your already insane COP system would be an ultrasonic unit. Ultrasonic is awesome. Yeah, I've used ultrasonic on my carb stones and stuff. But as we get into it, so another cool thing is, so I do have access to a. Oh, this is going to be what is it? It puts you under steam pressure, temperature. It's a sterilizer. And it'll come to me. But yeah, we have access to stuff like that too. So we can do some cool stuff from a quality standpoint. It's very, very nice. It's very, very nice. Next question is from Mai Kong on YouTube. Hi, Adam. Thanks for your video. And I have a question. If we clean the keg with sanitizer, or meaning using sanitizer in a clean keg, and there's liquid still inside the kegs a bit, can it spoil the beer? I use Proxetane, which is 15% peracetic acid and 23% hydrogen peroxide. Short answer is yes. Those are oxidizing sanitizers. And if there is sanitizer left in those kegs, it can facilitate oxidation of the beer that you're putting into those kegs. Now, one little hack that I had for that, and it was something that I learned from the illustrious William Gerds of Linwood Brewing Concern. We always had a keg coupler that the keg coupler has the liquid portion that's going straight up, and then the gas portion that goes off to the side. We always had one that was blocked off, or we would put a valve on it and close it on the gas side, so it was only open going up. Because what we would do is we would throw that in the sanitizer when we were getting ready to keg a beer. And so we would take a clean sanitized keg. We would, hit the mouth of the keg with ISO or whatever sanitizer we're using. And then we would take the coupler, attach it, cover the top of it with our hands, and then engage the coupler. Now that clean keg has, 13 to 15 PSI in it of CO2. And so what it would do is it would engage that keg. So it would drop that stem in the keg down to the bottom, and it would it would blow out any remaining sanitizer, or at least as much as we could get it out. Because sometimes you don't always evacuate all that sanitizer out of your keg on your keg washer. Now, this is also a good thing to do to know that you're still holding pressure in your kegs. So if you're cleaning kegs and storing them and then taking them down, you know what I mean? You're cleaning them one day, you're filling the next day, whatever. This way, doing that little test to blow out any residual sanitizer is another good way to know that you have a valve that's still working on your keg. So it's kind of a dual thing. It's pretty much free. It's pretty much a free solution because you probably already have a keg coupler in-house. So yeah, just plug that gas side, leave the top side open, safety glasses, everything like that. Cover the top with your hand, not like, flat on it, but like cup over it, engage it, and it'll blast some liquid into your hand onto the keg. Boom, get ready to fill that boy. That's my take, Mike Kong. Hopefully that helps you out with your situation. All right. Yeah, Joseph. My son is texting me. All my kids are home. Full house. Yes, please. He's helped me out with my coffee tonight. Next question comes from Syra Boy on YouTube. In regard to dry hopping cold, would you say that at a home brewer level, we should rack to a keg to get the beer off the yeast and then add hops, do your dry hop, and then purge the keg after at 58 degrees? Okay, so we're kind of dealing with some equipment issues here. So just a couple of big picture things. Make sure that anything that you're doing at home, if you're doing any pressure transfers, make sure that the vessel can handle pressure. Make sure that the receiving vessel the initial vessel and receiving vessel can handle any pressure that you're throwing on it. Don't put pressure on glass. I know people probably aren't using glass anymore, but yeah, be safe with that stuff. Okay, be safe with that stuff. That said, if you have a way of making a low oxygen transfer of your finished beer, there's a reference to the dry hop cold video, which is still one of my highest watched videos. Bobby in the chat, what's up, man? Welcome. Still one of my highest watched videos. I just saw even this week. It's got quite a lot of views, which is pretty cool. So I would recommend that always you're always purging the vessel as much as you can. So if you're going to be moving beer from one vessel to another, don't purge afterwards. Purge before, during, and after, in my mind. Always when I was racking beer into kegs when I was home brewing, I purged the keg. I would have to open it because I didn't have the connections to run like and do a full close transfer. But I would tent it up with some sanitized aluminum foil, and I would keep the gas input cracked a little bit and constantly bleeding gas into that vessel that I was filling into, right? And just purge. So if you are going to be going into a keg or another secondary pressurizable vessel, purge it ahead of time. Get that liquid in there. You can get it cold at that point. Make sure that you have head pressure on it, things like that. You can dry hop in that vessel. That's fine. If you're using a corny or some different things with some really small dip tubes, just there's some solutions out there for not getting hot particulate gummed up and everything. And then, yeah, I would look at crashing that to, all the way down to as cold as you can for packaging, and then give that some time to settle, and then transfer it into your final package vessel. That's how I would handle that. So yeah, I appreciate the question, Syra Boy. Gerald Miller on YouTube. Great content, Adam. Thank you. Love it. How often do you calibrate your pH meter? Thanks. We calibrate our pH meter weekly. Short answer. But I know Vinny from Russian River, they calibrate it daily. So it might have to do with what level of OCD you're comfortable with. But in all seriousness, probably calibrating it once a week before you brew. It's again making sure that you have appropriate storage solution to extend the shelf life of that probe. You definitely want to be doing that. But yeah, I would be doing it once a week for sure. And I'm talking about from a commercial standpoint, because we're using it all the time. We use it multiple times a day. So yeah. Otherwise, if you're brewing occasionally, I would calibrate it every time you use it. For every brew day. That's what I would do. Hey, Joe. Anyways, maybe Joe's not getting me coffee. Great question from September and June. Dumping yeast. In regards to lagers being bottom fermenters, when do you start dumping yeast? So I'm going to reference in small part a conversation that I had with Dr. Winans. I'm forgetting his first name. I know that he was, at least in the past, at Imperial Yeast. Was it? No, it wasn't him. It was a lab guy. Or maybe, yeah. Man, who am I thinking of? It was definitely an Imperial person. But anyways, yeah, dude, you can just come grab it. My man, Big Joe in the house, grabbing me some coffee. And he said that, yes, we do refer to those yeasts as bottom fermenters. But really the yeast that's doing the work is primarily up in solution, right? And so this was when we were talking about the idea of cone shaving, right? Or dropping early within the first 24 hours of a fermentation, slowly dropping the contents that are settled into the bottom of the fermenter and dumping those down the drain. But yeah, there just that as a side note. When do I start dumping yeast? I think it's a pretty safe thing to get yourself through terminal, get your beer passing VDK, passing sensory, everything like that. Get your beer crashing, get your beer cold. And then if you're not going to be harvesting off of it, probably after 2 days cold, I like to start dropping yeast off the bottom of the tank. I feel like when either you're harvesting or you're getting that yeast off, probably that first week, I would probably dump it at least 2 times, maybe 3, and then look at, every 3 to 4 days, maybe down to once a week as you're lagering that out. Joe, you're awesome, man. Thank you, brother. That would be my take on that. So that's how often I'm doing that. And be gentle with it. You don't want to be ripping. You know what I mean? He continues. So 3 dumps a week. I mean, up front, yeah. I mean, that's not typically my schedule. But that has changed since I've gone gluten-free. I'm telling you, as far as ripping dumps, no, man. I mean, I've been a new man. I need to keep rocking here, though. Next question comes from King Queso. Great names, you guys. King Queso the 4th. Come correct. Okay. Don't kid yourself. King Queso the 4th. If I was doing this, might be this month's favorite username. Can you explain the use of ISO instead of Star San? I understand that ISO evaporates faster, so it's good in applications like keg connections. Also, why do you want the pH of your beer so low? I've been doing all my beers between 5.2 and 5.6 going into the fermenter. Do you target lower pH for a specific reason? So a twofer. So here you go, King Queso the 4th. Few things here. It's my understanding that Star San has potentially some storage issues or some shelf life issues. It specifically needs to be mixed with RO water, distilled water, in order to maintain its clarity and maintain its long-term stability. Now, this was taken from an interview I listened to like 15 years ago from the guy from 5 Star. So this could be dated at this point, but that was the last thing. So the reason that I like using ISO or alcohol is I can blend that down if I need to 70% for ISO, because that's the ratio you want to be using, because that 30% water helps to act as a catalyst for breaking down cell walls. So, that's the reason why I like to use that. It's convenient, it's shelf stable, and I know it kills stuff. And why do I want pH so low? So for a couple of things. So, we are talking about your pH going into the fermenter, and we have not had a conversation of your pH in the final beer. For food safety, you're going to want to be under 4.5, I believe, is that number, under 4.5. But there's some beers like lagers that I like closer to 4.2, 4.1, sometimes even 4, right? I feel like it creates a crisper tasting beer for me, but there's different reasons for different beer styles, right? I think there's multiple factors at play when you're talking about pH levels, that you're kind of tracking. I do know, you can look at the amount of break material that you're creating in the kettle, and that's going to be affected by your pH of your wort. And so you could have clarity and then consequently stability issues long term, a greater opportunity for oxidation downstream, potentially. But as I mentioned before, the food safety thing as well. So that's kind of my take on those two things in a nutshell. King Queso the 4th. Appreciate it. That's the first time I got a question from you, man. Welcome to the channel. let's quick and do a drawing. I need a question. I need a number 1 through 21 for me real quick. Uh-oh. Okay, sweet. So chat, give me a number 1 through 21. Let me pull you back up here. I'm just trying to show no particular favoritism here. 17. All right, I'm taking it. All right, hold on one. All right, so I went with the number 17, and that means our own Andrew that is in the chat now. Brother, hit me up. Shoot me a message. Are you on Instagram? If you are, shoot me a message on Instagram, and I'll get we can pick out a t-shirt style, and I'll get one shipped out to you. So Andrew, you are the YouTube member winner for the food. What am I even thinking, dude? I should have been a little bit more prepared on this side. But Andrew, we got your t-shirt. Hit me up on Insta or another way. My email is floating around out there too if you need it. The next one I'm gonna do eeny meeny miny mo. Yeah, get on Instagram. Yeah, and then follow me and then share all my stuff. I mean, that's all you need to do. So let's see here. I'm going to all right. Well, wouldn't you know it? The winner for the Instagram is going to be, I'm in LinkedIn too, dude. I'm everywhere. You can message me on LinkedIn. That's fine. Definitely. My user is Tim Summers, who's been in the chat tonight. Tim, because you shared out this post on Instagram. We appreciate it. Hit me up, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Holler at me, and we'll get the t-shirt thing lined up. And yeah, you can rock yourself some Adam Makes Beer gear. And if you don't know, the link is actually in the on the YouTube page. But let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. Yeah, boom, Control copy. Watch this. Control V, boom. That is the link. The link I just threw up is for the merch store if you want to check that stuff out. That new design on the hoodie I like, and I'm going to be putting that on a t-shirt too. So yeah. By the new design, I mean the 4 elements of beer and then Adam Makes Beer underneath it. But listen, we got to get rocking here, people. We got questions to ask and answer. Next question comes from El Camino, Mas Largo Brewing on YouTube. Great info as always, Adam. Thank you. I've been thinking about getting a 5-gallon barrel to use for my Imperial Stout recipe. I'm a home brewer. Do you use a thief to pull out your samples? I assume I don't need to be worried about oxidation since stouts aren't very hoppy. First of all, thank you for the question. Second of all, I would suggest that you take a look at the old Vinny nail, the Vinny nail approach. We're just going to talk a couple of barrel handling ideas here, especially when working with smaller gauge barrels, smaller size barrels like 5-gallon barrels. You're going to want to start sampling that probably after a month, maybe 6 weeks. But 4 weeks is probably where you're going to want to start being able to taste that beer a little bit. And I would recommend that you use the Vinny Nail approach. The Vinny Nail is it's a 3/16. It's a 3/16 stainless steel 4D size nail. Okay, so it's a good stainless for food, and then you're going to want a 7/64 size drill bit. Okay, you're going to want to clean that as well as you can. Spray it up with some alcohol. Throw it in the drill. Drill into the head. I would go into the lower half of the head, the round portion of your barrel, the lower third. Drill through the center of one of the staves. Don't try to go between one. I don't know. Maybe I'm being weird about it, but drill through the center of a stave. Have a clean and sanitized nail ready to go. As soon as you bust through there, take that drill bit out. You're going to start seeing some beer squirt out. Get that nail in there, tap it in, and then you'll be able to pull that with a wrench to be able to get samples for your beer, and you're not opening the bung, everything like that. But a couple of things that you said makes me want to remind you of a couple of points when you're handling this. One, do make sure that you are purging that barrel before you fill it. Okay, purge it with CO2. 5 psi flow rate coming, well, not flow rate, but pressure coming out of your CO2 canister. Give it about 5 minutes. Maybe that's too much, but 5 minutes. Cover it up with a little tin foil, sanitized tin foil. As you're doing that, it's a good thing. Rack your beer in there. Purge your headspace again if you can. Get that bung in there. Preferably one of the flexible nylon ones. Maybe that can even off gas if it builds pressure. All right, but that's not really what you're asking. The thing that you mentioned that was kind of stuck out to me says, assuming I don't need to be worried about oxidation since stouts aren't very hoppy. Oxidation knows no bounds. It just does its thing. It ruins everything. It ruins hop flavor, and it can ruin malt character. Okay, so just because a stout is not a hoppy beer does not mean that we want to be playing fast and loose when it comes to the oxygen. Okay, so like I said, purge ahead of time, and reduce oxygen at all turns. Now, I will say oxidation may be hid better by dark beers, by large, dark, robust beers, right? I think in part because a lot of us are used to drinking oxidized beers that have been shipped from Europe. Okay, and that's not poo-pooing those beers or anything like that. You try to make a Hefeweizen and throw it in a bottle and then ship it across an ocean and see how your Hefeweizen holds up. Okay, but yeah, that's kind of my feel on that, man. I appreciate the question and all that good stuff. Now, Jay, I don't think you're in the thing right now, but is Jay Spees? I don't think it's Spies. I think it's Spees. Jay. But anyways, Jay on YouTube. We have an electrically heated 20-gallon 2-vessel CIP cart for our brewery in planning. Our cart differs from yours in that it can be moved to the source for cleaning, and also that it does not have a city water inlet. We will probably store caustic in the heated tank and peracetic acid in the non-heated tank. Since the heated tank has a PID, my plan was to preheat it on cleaning days ahead of time, then use our 140-degree external hot water source, or perhaps HLT water, to blast pre-rinse and preheat the FV. Then simply roll the cart to the FV, hook up a loop, and run for the recommended time. I have a few questions. Since I only have one pump in the loop, do you think that gravity will be enough to return the bottom return water to the CIP pump without cavitating it? I assume I could just throttle the pump outflow. I'm going to answer some of these as we go, and then I have some notes at the end as well. My big concern is throttling the pump back. Okay. You may need a return pump. I'm not sure how your setup will work. I'm not sure how much higher the bottom of your tank is set up above your cart. If they're equal or if the cart's higher, you might have an issue. So you might need a return pump. Okay. But the main thing is, and the thing that's the first thing I think of when we talk about throttling back the pump, you want to make sure that you're hitting the appropriate flow rate. Okay. Because that's one of the key that turbulence that it's one of the key portions of CIP. So you want to make sure that you're not going under 5 feet per second for your liquid or 1.5 meters per second flow rate. Okay. So this doesn't mean that you have to have a flow rate meter in line all the time. But I would maybe install one when you are just have water, when you're just spinning something with water, and test that. And maybe your speed on your variable speed drive for your pump. That might be a good way to make sure that you're hitting that. So just keep that in mind. Jay continues. How often do you change the chemicals in your CIP skid? I would assume it depends on what you're cleaning and how well you pre-rinse, but is there some SOP you have for observation, or do you go by titration only? Titration is the primary driver. All right. If it gets dirty by mistake, we'll dump it. Like if it, if a bunch of dirty caustic running back, we don't like to have nasty looking caustic in there. But our setup has that inline water source, which lends itself to clean chemical, right? And also there's a little bit of flush and a little bit of refreshing of that chemical or dilution of the chemical every time we feed back. Okay. So, when I'm feeding hot chemical back to the CIP skid for caustic, as soon as I feel that temperature start dropping, I can chase a little bit more city water in there. So I am diluting, but I'm also slowly, getting, clean water back in that system too. So that's one thing. And our system does have this inline water feature that's very, very nice. And I think it helps to lend itself to keeping clean chemical. But yes, we do lean primarily on titration as the primary driver. Do you ever hook up two things to be cleaned in parallel? For example, CIP outlet split with the T and two valves for time saving, or do you think that the pressure drop would negatively impact the effectiveness? Flow rate is king. So find out. Okay. You can do that. That's fine. I've seen people on Reddit put some real beasts together and they're cleaning everything at once. Good for them. Flow rate is king though. All right. Make sure that you're hitting the appropriate flow rate. He continues. For my system, how necessary do you think a flow meter on the pump outlet would be? At least for trialing, like as we've been mentioning, at least for trialing these things and your different speed settings on your pump. And remember, different tanks and different hosing alignments are going to have different, are going to generate different flow rates. So if you have 50 feet of hose in line or 10 feet of hose, there's going to be different levels of restriction, right? So yeah, check that stuff out. So if you have to borrow one from a friend, or do make that investment or something like that, I think it's pretty big. I think it's pretty big. What else? What was the water running onto the floor behind the acid tank in the video? Thanks. Great videos as always. That's that water that was dumping on the floor is related to the steam system. It's like a condensate thing because that's all steam heated. So that's coming out of that. Just a couple of one thing to consider when it comes to cleaning your tank with that caustic side. Consider the following: water blast on the tank is good, but also consider utilizing a blast with caustic as well. If you have 20 gallons, maybe see what 5 gallons does or 10 gallons. And then drop that straight to the floor. That's going to do a couple things. It's going to remove a lot of soil for you. And because you don't want this nasty caustic circulating around, right? You want to actually take care of that stuff and cut through it so you can actually be cleaning the steel, right? But also you can potentially have CO2 in that tank still. And it also works to neutralize that a little bit as well. So it can help. It can help in both ways. So great question, and I appreciate it. Next question comes from Rad Dad on YouTube. Does your mash tun stir the entire mash? As a home brewer, I stir my mash hard about halfway through. Other home brewers are against this for some reason. Thoughts? First of all, I don't know. I don't know the utility of beating it up. You said you're stirring it hard. A vigorous stir on that, I don't know. I don't know really what that's getting you. Sometimes it's one of those things where it scratches an itch and it's like, I like doing this. It makes me feel better about some part of the process. That's great. But if I don't have a continuously stirred mash, I do have a continuously stirred lauter at Sonder. But I had no problem. Like when I was in my mash rest, I would turn my rake sometimes, especially on bigger beers, halfway through, just give it a nice gentle turn. I didn't want to like stir the whole thing up again from any natural settling that had already happened, because you could be extending like your Verloff, your ability to run that work clear by doing that. And I think some home brewers might also be talking about, or just some brewers might just also be talking about oxidation at that point. It's a potential area for hot side oxidation, where if you're really beating that thing up, you can be introducing oxygen there, right? And maybe getting some staling downstream. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it, man. I think the primary concern is oxidation. And then secondly, or equally, prolonging your Vorlauf or getting a less clear wort into your kettle. All right. Appreciate the question. Just a second here. A little call her. Happy New Year. I'm a brewery. Good to see you in there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Andrew. Makes a lot of sense. Next question is from Jeff Burns on Instagram. Hey, Adam, quick question for you. I made a Kolsch for a very small brewery in Ohio, and I currently have it carbonating in the bright tank. It's a 3-barrel batch. I used Omega's Kolsch 2 liquid strain and actually fermented it at 65 degrees Fahrenheit and then cold crashed it. Now, tasting it in my bright tank, which is inside a cooler, I'm tasting diacetyl. I've looked up how to possibly get rid of that diacetyl, which most I've seen is to keg the beer and then store the kegged beer warm or at room temp for 3 weeks or so. I wanted to ask you if you think this might be okay. I thought about transferring this batch back into a fermenter, X, Y, and Z. I appreciate the advice. Also, I see you're going to be at the OCBA conference in Toledo in January. Can't wait. Hit me up, dude. Hit me up. The beer has been filtered. That's what I asked. So the beer has been filtered. So the beer has no yeast. And that's our ding, ding, ding moment for this answer. Okay. You can do whatever you want with that beer with no yeast in it. It's clear. It's done. You can throw it in kegs. You can warm it up. Nothing's going to happen. Okay. Because functionally what's happening is yeast need to reabsorb that diacetyl. Okay. That movie theater butter character in it. Now we can talk adding things like a diacetyl test to your program. You can give that a Google, but essentially a relatively sealed vessel, heat it up, sample of that beer, heat it up, and then you can smell the aromatics on it. That diacetyl will be more evident at that point, and that could have saved you up front. Also, I have a video on that process, but so you can probably Google that or search it in YouTube. Adam makes beer and diacetyl butter, things like that. So that'll show you how I do diacetyl test. But I think the only fix you're looking at here, man, is using the technique of krausening. Okay, and I think you need to get that beer warm again in another vessel. And I think you probably need to get my guess is ballpark of 10% of the volume, maybe 5 to 10% of the volume, but 5 to 10% of the volume. I'm leaning toward 10 of the volume of a similar beer with a similar yeast strain, similar color, and that is actively fermenting. All right. That's like on day 1 or 2 of fermentation. And you need to take 10% of that fermenting beer and krausen it and add it to that now room temperature diacetyl beer, because it's going to be the active yeast that will reconsume or reuptake or uptake that diacetyl. Putting it in a tank, throwing dried yeast at it probably isn't going to do it. Taking a slurry and throwing at it, maybe, but you want active yeast that's rolling. Okay. That's the fix there. That's the fix there. So hope it works out well for you. Please say hello to me in the great city of Toledo. All right. Days away, essentially. Next question comes from Jop Baras on Instagram. Hello, Adam. Thanks again for continuously pumping out such great content for brewers around the world. I've been playing around with first wort hops, initially as a countermeasure to prevent boilovers. We have a direct fire kettle. We recently cleaned the fire chamber and removed a large amount of soot that had and we immediately noticed that the kettle was heating faster, which is good, but also increases our likelihood for boilovers. We are located in a Latin American country, so things like firm cap take some time to arrive. So far, first wort hopping has helped quite a bit to prevent boilovers, but now I am worried about undershooting my IBUs. I've been adding them when the lautered wort is at 90 degrees C, so just prior to boil. I've read others add them as soon as they have some wort covering the bottom of the kettle. Any tips or suggestions you guys can share in regards to this technique? Just to add, I've been splitting around 1/3 to half of my bittering charge as first wort. Cheers. First of all, thank you for all the kind words. First wort hopping is a little bit of a, not controversial, but there's different takes on it, right? Everybody always uses the terminology, you get a finer hop aroma, different things like that off of it. That is a quote from German research. And if you are thinking about an American hop profile, they're not talking about the same thing. All right. They're not talking about the same thing when they're talking about a finer hop profile. Okay. So, first wort hopping, you're definitely going to get bitterness out of it. Yes, you can add that directly at the beginning you have wort in your kettle. Great. Get those hops in there. There is some discussion surrounding this about the higher pH of the wort at that point, prior to boil, because the boil drives the pH of your wort down, that it can help to volatilize some non-desirables, different things like that. But there's people I respect on both sides of the aisle that say that they think it works, and some people that they think it doesn't. Obviously, it will give you IBU, and so use a trusted hop calculator for when inputting those things in order to do that right. But you added an interesting layer to it. If you're seeing results in helping you avoid boilovers, I think that's great, man. Boilovers are scary. It's one of the scariest things that we have going on in this business. So if you're finding positives there, which wouldn't surprise me, it might help to stop some of that boilover process. So I think it's sweet. Keep running with it. I don't have any issue with the technique. Whether or not I would be able to swear as to smoother bitterness, finer hop aromas, some of the different things that people say about it. Find out what you like in your beer with that technique. But if you're finding success with avoiding boilover, that's where it's at, and keep rolling with it. Yeah, I think that's a great question, Andrew, and you're spot on. I wouldn't wanna. I don't think I wanna. Uh, yeah, you get it. You get it. Um, Not that I have bad things to say or anything like that. Next question is from Mad Viking Brewing. Hey, Adam, my beers are always lacking that bright hop flavor and aroma, always tasting bitter and muddled. I typically use 3 to 5 to 1 sulfate to chloride in my water. I dry hop for 1 day and cold crash for 2, leaving the hops in the fermenter for 3 days total. I don't, however, take pH. Could this possibly be a problem? He's doing the equivalent of 2.2 pounds per barrel or 8 grams per liter. He says Aussie over here on a 6.4% IPA or 5 grams per liter on a hoppy pale ale. He said, I just did a pH of a finished beer and it was 4.7. So I would try adjusting that pH down to see how those beers come across once you hit food safe range. I know some people like their pH higher. Some people like their pH lower on those beers. But I know there are some people that really love having a lower pH on those beers, because remember, those hops are going to be drawing up the pH of your beer, especially at those more aggressive dry hop levels. I don't think there's any big problem with the process. I would say, if you are on the homebrew side, I don't have a huge problem with the contact time that you're utilizing, but maybe give it a rouse or two. You're using a smaller fermenter. Maybe you can swirl it, a rocket, something like that. Get those things, keep those things up in solution a little bit, and that might give you that might help you in that direction as well. So yeah, take a look at the water a little bit, and then maybe look at getting those hops roused a little bit and see if you can pop those a little bit more. I might dial back that sulfate. Lean off that gypsum, man. Go 1 to 1. And go 1 to 1. Get about 100 parts of 75, 100 parts of chloride sulfate in it, and 50 to 100 parts calcium in it, and then kind of see what you're looking at. Appreciate the question, dude. Next question comes from Tallman Brewing. Merry Christmas, Adam. Merry Christmas to you too. Keep up the good work. Love the content, complimentary. The content, commentary, and range of topics. I'm glad to hear that. Question 1: mash hopping. Pellets or leaf hops when you add them. What are the best practices you've learned when mash hopping? So first of all, I have used cone. I've used whole cone, but mostly I use pellets. Utility on the on whether or not you do get smoother bitterness, finer hop aromatics. I say do it for yourself and find out. But yeah, you are looking at getting those hops into. Oh wait, goodness gracious! Did I just answer wrong? Did I just give a whole big question about? Hold on just a second. Okay, good. I was mixing up mash hop and first wort. I was panicking for a second. Let me get back on. Let me get back on point here. So mash hopping, pellets or leaf. When do you add them? For me, when I mash hop with pellets. As soon as I have my strike water and grain grist, and I'm up above, I'm up above the grain bed. I'll add them a couple strikes throughout it, just kind of spread it out. I probably don't even need to because it's getting stirred. But yeah, that's what I do. And the utility of this is, some people make the argument about, maybe you get a smoother bitterness, different things like that. Plug it into a reliable recipe calculator. The other use case for this is being able to thump up your thiol load. Okay, so if you are working with thiolized yeast, this is a good place to be able to, if you're looking to really push your thiol volume, with some of the thiol accentuating yeast or thiol generating yeasts that are available out there. That's a good space for that. Question 2, batches to fill a fermenter. How much time do you have to get an FV full between batches? That is, if I have a 20 barrel and I'm running a 5 barrel batches, how much time from the first batch to the last batch? If that were me, I would do 2 doubles. I would turn wort in 2 days, turn 5 barrels, turn another 5, and then turn the next 10 the next day. I know some people will go up to 3, but I don't know. That's just what I would do in your situation. I would also look at thinking about high gravity brewing, if that's an option for you. Brewing, depending on style and everything like that, maybe think about making a denser wort and then cutting it back, maybe on your way into the fermenter with some pre-boiled water. That's water adjusted for pH. That might be an option for you as well. So some different things. But yeah, that's what I would do in that situation. Try to wrap it up in 2 days, but I don't think you're going to be down the river if you did it over the course of 3 either. But yeah. All right. Next question comes from David Garza on Instagram. Hey, Adam, trying to dissect an issue at my brewery. Oh, dude, I need to come back to this one. I need to research this one. This was on metallic issues, and I need to dive more into it. I don't want to speak from a place of weakness, and I would be if I answered that question. So I apologize. I need to grind on that one a little bit more. Jake Keys on Instagram. Hey, Adam, great content. Quick question. I'm not sure how much experience you have with unitanks, but we've experimented with different dry hopping amounts to see how much impact it has on yield. And we've noticed that the issue has less to do with the amount of dry hop and more to do with hops getting stuck all along the cone of the tank along the wall. Then once we get to the end of packaging or transferring and the volume of beer gets below the top of that cone, the hops then fall off the wall and into the clear beer. This leads me to believe that hops just aren't settling all the way to the bottom. So even after we feel as though we've dumped enough hops to get clear beer, we still have hops built up the wall of the cone. Any advice on getting those hops to slide down, collect in the bottom? Do you think there's any validity to my current thesis that glycol paired with the slope of the cone is causing hops to freeze and stick to the wall? It's possible, but I would lean more on the fact that you probably are going to need some sort of mixing going on with that. Okay, whether that means that you are blasting a high rate of CO2, like maybe 30, 40 PSI through the racking arm or through the bottom of the tank, depending on if you still have yeast down there, but blowing something up through the tank during your dry hop or after your dry hop, and maybe doing that again on some consecutive days afterwards to make sure that's roused and blown through. That might help that issue right there. You can also circulate dry hops. People do that. Sometimes they will dry hop, blast gas through to mix, and then hook up a clean, sanitized, and purged pump rig with all its connection points well sealed, and then circulate that beer with your pump. That might be another option. So yeah, my guess is it should be your solution will lean on mechanically circulating that beer or creating turbulence in that beer. So yeah, that's my take on it. Next question comes from Tim Summers. Hey, don't know if this was a good question for your Q&A, but wanted to ask you an opinion question. Why aren't there more Belgian craft breweries? I mean, even Michael Jackson talked New Belgium out of doing a Belgian-based brewery. I'm just confused as to why that style seems to only get partial attention. And he's talking about Goza, Flanders, triples, quads, etc. I just listened to an interview with who's the Belgian dude at New Belgium? I should know. Anyways, I don't know. I apologize. He he uh he mentions that he thinks that there's an issue with the American palate and the ester profile, and the ester profile specifically. He spoke to the ester profile and specifically the banana profile of some of the Belgian beers out there, some of the things that Belgian yeast produce. He didn't touch on phenolics, but I think that's a potential issue as well. And he was saying that he says he doesn't feel as if it's well suited to the generalized American palate. Now, he knows more than me. I do know Belgian beers tend to be a love and hate thing, a love or hate thing. I think in part because it's difficult to actually make great Belgian beer, right? I think sometimes I think I've had more bad Belgian beer than I have some other styles. I think it takes some real care and understanding of what's going on with those yeast strains, of what you're trying to accomplish recipe wise. And I think there's a strange mythology around brewing these beers on the stateside and in the United States, that I don't think is necessarily what's actually happening with those yeasts. But anyways, that's kind of my take. I think in some ways, I think it's a cultural palate thing a little bit. That's not to say that it would never trend again or anything like that. I think there are some delicious beer styles in there. But that was what the New Belgium guy was saying. So anyways, that's that. Next question is from my man Jamie Tripp on Facebook. Adam, a man, 2 exclamation points. As a small brewery, we are trying to determine the best ratio of can to keg. We are currently canning about 40 to 50% of our product, but they sell out much before the keg stock. My question is 2 parts. First, should we shift the canning to canning more or wait until we see a full year of data? Second, what is the longest you would be comfortable keeping kegs in a continuously refrigerated environment? Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, I mean, you could just look at your numbers and you're going to have some shift. First of all, the can is not getting you the margin that the keg is, and we both know that. Let me look back at the ratio. We are currently okay. So it's almost like you're selling more to-go beer or distro beer, right? Than your keg stock. Keeping in mind that your keg stock, your in-house beer is your bread and butter. Okay. You may be at a situation where you want the cans to run out, just because of the fact you're making such a better margin on the other. Flip side is taste, sensory, everything like that all comes into play. I think if you're really tight on everything, you shouldn't have a problem with a 6-month window with something that is stored cold nonstop. But also let your nose and palate be the guide on that as well. And also remember, any beer that you have packaged, you can draw some off, degas it, check pH, look back. Is the pH still exactly the same, right? Is the final gravity still the same? Check those things out, right? Those are things that you can track when it comes to that. So yeah, Jamie, again, best luck. Jamie is running test batches up there in Canada. So yes. Yeah, and just to jump to this one real quick, that whole idea of sulfate levels making the hops pop, it's misconstrued. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about flavor and aroma. What sulfate does is, in my mind, sulfate brings bitterness into focus. It doesn't make it bigger, but it makes a beer taste drier, maybe crisper, leaner. It can, right? And obviously add a minerality component as well. But yeah, so that's the idea there, man. That's not going to do anything with your hop flavor or anything like that. Steve Ward, Happy New Year from Tasmania. Dude, that's awesome. Well, I mean, thank you. Happy New Year to you as well. That's the fact that you're from Tasmania and that blows my mind. That's sweet, dude. Well, hey everybody, that's going to be a wrap for me this month. You're not going to want to miss Mitch Steele coming up mid-month. Stay tuned. Please give me those follows on YouTube, and make sure you do the ring the bell thing, everything like that, so you can stay in line with that stuff. Remember, this stuff is all on podcast, on Spotify, Apple Podcast. We do appreciate any support that you can offer us, anything from making sure you hit likes on those videos to buying merch, stuff like that. All very much appreciated. I'm still figuring out the merch thing. I'm like buying everything ahead of time to make sure like I like it before I start selling it. So we're rolling that stuff out. But anyways, just as always, so humbled and grateful. 2023 was a year of growth with the channel and personally for me. I'm really going to be. I'm working on trying to be a better man, like more balanced, more reasonable with my time allotment, right? Dropping stress, mental stress, so I can, fully engage with my family and stuff. But it's all part of the process. 2023 was great and crazy in so many ways. I think 2024 is going to be really exciting, man. And sometimes when you're on the internet, people have different wild things to say about things. I know here in the U.S. we have an election year. There's trouble around the world and stuff like that. But if you're somebody that feels a lot of stress on stuff like that, keep it local, man. Focus on your people, focus on your family, focus on your friends. Do good for each other. Be grateful. And I'm excited to see what comes up in this upcoming year. You guys, again, the support that I get from all over the place, it's wild, so yeah, just great stuff. And we'll see you here soon. Take care, you guys.